to you by the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica on bridging generational gaps in music and media. My name is Archibald Gordon, and I'll be your master of ceremony for today's discussion. Now, for those of you who may not know me, I'm a journalist. I've worked in broadcast media for about 2 decades. And today's topic is something I'm really passionate about. I'm passionate about music and about how different generations engage with music and media, and how we can bridge the gap between older and younger audiences to create a more informed and responsible approach to content consumption. So, why are we here today? Music and media shape our culture and they influence our values, but one thing remains constant. Every generation, I've heard it from my mother, I'm sure you've heard it from your relatives as well. Every generation believes their music was better and the next generation's music is too extreme. In the 1950s, Elvis Presley's Hound Dog, I'm not sure if people know that song, Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog, unbelievable, but was seen as too sexually suggestive, and parents feared that rock and roll would corrupt the youth. In the 1970s, Bob Marley's Get Up Stand Up was considered dangerous by some governments because it encouraged people to fight oppression. In the 1990s, Shabba Ranks' Trailer Load was criticized for its bold celebration of dancehall culture and objectification of women, leading to a global debate about dancehall music's portrayal of gender and relationships. And in the 2000s, Vibe Cartel's Ramping Shop was banned from radio for explicit lyrics, raising concerns about how much regulation should be placed on artistic expression in dancehall music. In the 2010s, Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines was removed from university campuses over concerns about consent. So, is today's music worse, or are we just repeating history? How do we bridge that gap between generations so we can better understand each other's perspectives? And do artists have a responsibility to shape positive values? And what practical strategies can you make, can you use when deciding what to actually listen to and how to regulate it? Those are some of the issues that we're going to be talking about today. We have an exciting program for you, but first, a few housekeeping announcements. So, we are streaming live and we want to hear from you. We want people to be talking to each other. You can use the chat, engage with each other, but we're asking that you do so respectfully. We're also asking that you drop your questions in the Q&A section. We'll answer them later in the session. There will be no live audience questions taken, meaning you'll not be able to use your microphone, but we do encourage people to use the chat. If you want to hear the closed captioning as well, you can use the button at the bottom of the screen to enable captions. And before we close, we're asking for you to complete the session evaluation. That's really important. These sessions are about getting your feedback, and we want to know how we can use them and how we can do them better. So let's get started. Our first speaker today is Mr. Cordell Green. He's the Executive Director of the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica. He is a distinguished media regulator. He's an attorney at law. He's a leading advocate for responsible digital and media literacy. Cordell, over to you.
Morning. Thank you very much, Archie. And may I say a very special welcome to the young people who are joining us. I just saw in the chat Cheyenne, who is 16 years old from India, who has joined this discussion. A very special welcome to you. And then that means I should say good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are in the world. I was beginning on the rebuttal of presumption that it was a largely Jamaican and Caribbean audience. So thank you for that alert, Cheyenne. I am delighted to welcome all of you to this timely and thought-provoking discussion. We may not all agree on what constitutes harmful content, but I think certainly we can agree that content created harms are real. And this makes the work of the Broadcasting Commission as a content regulator a bit testy because it requires a balancing of competing interests, especially the protection of children without unjustifiably restricting free and creative expression. Of course, our varying philosophical, religious, cultural, family, and community experiences shape the perspective that we bring to these issues. And that makes it essential that we listen to each other and be less judgmental. We can't be too overly optimistic about the correctness of the position we hold on the issues, or too overly pessimistic about other people's positions. What I do hope is that this discussion will lead to a better understanding and consensus that there is a shared responsibility to ensure that the content we create, what we distribute and broadcast, and what we consume, that it is aspirational for all of this to work to promote a safe, healthy, respectful, culturally rich, and empowering environment, regardless of our age, background, or identity. Over the next hour, we have a very, very able panel of speakers who will share insights. But as Archie said at the beginning, I very much encourage you online to weigh in via the chat and also the Q&A. Thank you very much, and I look forward to a spirited discussion.
Thanks very much, Cordell. Now, before we introduce our panel, let's take a step back for a moment and examine how music, media, and culture have evolved over time. To guide us in that discussion, we have Mr. Clyde Mackenzie. He's an expert in music history, cultural analysis, and industry shifts. Clyde Mackenzie is a music historian, he's a cultural analyst. He is the co-author of the renowned book, Reggae Roots, The Story of Jamaican Music. Clyde, over to you.
Thank you, Archie. Good morning, all panelists, members of the public, and representatives of the Broadcasting Commission. Good morning, Muta, and good morning, Cordell, the Executive Director of the Broadcasting Commission. I want to thank the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica for staging this important event and for inviting me to participate in it. Let me declare that I do not intend for my remarks to be either exhausting or exhaustive, so there are many significant points which will be left out in this presentation due to time constraints. While pondering this presentation, which could have been pompously labeled transgenerational discontinuity in the consumption of media and entertainment products, it struck me that a group of people we call the woke generation is perhaps the first in history to deem large portions of the musical and literary outputs of their ancestors as unfit for consumption. Many works of Shakespeare, Chaucer, and others of their ilk have been consigned to the dustbin for the perceived damage they could cause to various groupings, including vulnerable minorities. Of course, this is in sharp contrast to previous generations, which had revered the literary and musical works of their forebears as the standards by which excellence was measured. Historically, it was the preceding generations which often deemed the artistic products of their offspring as problematic. The woke generation basically turned this principle on its head, but not without some notable accomplishments, particularly in the areas of diversity and equity. This woke phenomenon has not been as evident in Jamaica as it has been in the United States, where it is now experiencing tremendous backlash. But it has had its influence here. For centuries, creatives and the political directorate have fought pitched battles over what kind of content the public should be allowed to consume. Political leaders have not only been concerned about the content of the music, but the form as well. Jazz was referred to as the devil's music, not because of its lyrics, but due to its free form. In Jamaica, reggae music was not at the top of the charts. Bob Marley and his music were not considered appropriate for polite company. While technology has had an enormous impact on the nature and structure of our artistic output, regulation plays a significant role in how we access content. While there are those who might consider regulators, such as the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica, as a nuisance, let me hasten to state that these agents of the state serve a number of critical functions related to our national and personal security. Let me point out that the BCJ, through its regulation of the airwaves, creates order on the electromagnetic spectrum. Can you imagine if people were able to operate radio and television stations without regulation? Airplanes would be falling from the skies like flies over Jamaica, and we'd perhaps not be able to watch TV or listen to our radio without interruption. We'd also have had far less control over the content to which our children should have access. Yet these agencies have sometimes been criticized, not unjustifiably, but we should understand that we will not always get it right. Technologies, while they are embedded with functionalities, do not usually have intentionality. The experts are contending that artificial intelligence is changing all of this. In many instances, it is incumbent on the political representatives through agencies such as the BCJ to determine the application of particular technologies through regulation, which often lags behind innovation, due sometimes to ignorance and political divisions. In the United States, there's a raging existential, if not necessarily intellectual debate about regulation which affects our social media engagement across the globe. An obscure piece of legislation, Section 230 of the CDA, removes liability from social media sites for content which are posted on them. The legal justification is that social media sites and other related platforms are not editors or publishers of the user-generated content and should therefore not be held liable for the posts which are displayed on them. Section 230 is central to the viability of social media. One side of this debate is calling for more regulation and fact-checking, while the other is advocating the very opposite. The outcome of this debate will have an enormous impact on how we engage on social media. The fact is that both local and international, we have seen how technology has not only shaped the form but the substance of our music. The electric guitar was a prime instrument in the creation and the definition of rock music. The employment of multi-tracking and sound amplification technologies were critical in the development of Jamaican-inspired genres such as dancehall and hip-hop. The dawn of cable television accelerated the disintegration of political consensus in many societies with the rise of specialty media. Cable stations began catering to narrow interests, be it sports, cooking, or specific music genres. In Jamaica, we were deluged with foreign-originated programming on cable as local media entities seemed unable to provide sufficient programming of high quality while generating a profit. Sportsmap seems to be a notable exception, though a significant portion of its output is of foreign origin. The rise of digital online media further accelerated the process of audience splintering. I also believe it has contributed to the death of shame. No longer do people feel compelled to conform to societal norms and standards in order to secure media access. One does not need to appease gatekeepers in order to gain access to the media. I personally find the politicization of personal matters and the personalization of political issues as two of the more disturbing features of the social media ecosystem. Politicians have become more digitally savvy, and they are armed with the understanding that they can go directly to their audiences without going through gatekeepers. They do not have to be as careful today in what they say on these platforms, as being truthful is not a precondition for access to these sites. I would not complete this presentation, though, without making reference to the elephant in the room, artificial intelligence, which is perhaps the greatest opportunity and the greatest threat facing human civilization. The information crunching capabilities of AI hold great possibilities for human advancement. The reality distorting effects of this technology are undermining our trust in essential institutions and our very notion of self. Our answer to the existential question, who am I, will not be as easy to answer or to swallow as that which came from being a man. My fear is that we might have passed the point of no return as it relates to our capacity to constrain negative consequences which might flow from the mechanics of AI. Of course, we should look also at the role of artists and how their output is regulated. I, for one, believe that there should be spaces for content and the consumption of it, rather than an outright sanctioning of people for the expression of their views. So, for me, it is simple. The laws should speak to the content and not necessarily to silence the content creator. So what are the relatives and what are the remedies available to us? Some are technological, others are political. In my opinion, the technological issues are usually more readily open to solutions than are the political ones. That's ironic. The use of fact-checking software, which would be superimposed on social media sites, is one of the solutions being discussed. This digital fact-checker, which has been called middleware in some circles, could perhaps face its biggest challenge in the political arena. Instantaneity has been implicated as a dangerous feature of the social media ecosystem. Cocoa Tea died many times on social media before his death, and he was not a coward. In fact, the introduction of the like function on Facebook in 2009 and an inscrutable algorithm which enhances the virality of negative content have been blamed for the rapid spread of disinformation on social media platforms. Francis Hogan, a former Facebook executive, has suggested that a delay between the time that a posting is made and when it actually appears on the site could make a difference in the virality of certain problematic or potentially harmful content. The issue of parental guidance is more crucial than at any point in our history. We will need to have conversations with our children about media consumption and how it can affect their physical and mental health. We will need to take our children into our trust so that they will engage us on important issues which not only affect them, but us. We will have to work with them to develop their critical thinking skills so that they will be able to navigate their way safely through the oceans of disinformation. This will have to be a collective exercise. We cannot do it by ourselves, nor can our children do it alone. This will require the engendering of intergenerational trust, which is now a rapidly depleting resource. Regulation and education are essential in our quest for survival. Regulation without education is tyranny, and education without regulation leads to chaos. While the regulation of technologies is critical to our survival, self-regulation might be the most important tool available to us in this existential challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clyde. So much to throw in what you've said. These oceans of disinformation, death of shame, greatest threat to, I think you said human civilization. And I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you on some of what you've said, but that's my position. And we'd love to hear from, and we are going to be hearing from our panelists, but also we want to hear from the people who have joined us all over the world. I'm seeing people from Guyana, Anguilla, Ethiopia, Turks and Caicos, Canada, etc. Just remember, you can share your comments, share your own experiences in the chat. Use the Q&A to ask questions. We want to have a robust discussion today. And as we go towards that discussion, it's now time to introduce our panelists for this segment. In this segment, we're going to be hearing from, first up, Andrea Chung. She is a co-founder and executive director of Kingston Creative, an arts nonprofit dedicated to empowering Jamaica's creative sector. She is a member of the Global Creative Economy Council and serves on the advisory board of the Global Cultural Districts Network. With a background in public service, she has held senior roles within the government of Jamaica and has served on the boards of the Jamaica Conservation and Development Trust, the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, the National Land Agency, and the Public Health Committee. Our next panelist is Wayne Chen. He is a business leader with decades of experience across multiple sectors. He is chairman of Superplus Food Stores, Petrojam, and the Southern Regional Health Authority, and serves as president of the Jamaica Employees Federation. He's a founding member and first chairman of the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, CAPRI, and he has also chaired several major organizations, including CBM Television and the Urban Development Corporation. We have online as well, Perry Cummings Jr. is a final year student at University of the West Indies, Mona, pursuing a bachelor's degree in political science with a minor in gender studies. He is dedicated to student advocacy and leadership, and he serves as UWI Mona Guild president for 2024-2025 academic year. In addition to his academic and leadership roles, he is a gospel recording artist and a social media influencer. And Courtney is online with us as well. She was born into a musical family that lives in the tourist city of Montego Bay, Jamaica. She was always encouraged to pursue her passion in music, which resulted in her learning to play the piano at the tender age of 6. She draws inspiration from many artists and groups, ranging from Toots and the Maytals to Beyonce, back to Nirvana, Ella Fitzgerald to Damian Marley, and everything in between. She has a bachelor's degree in jazz and popular music studies, which she obtained from the Edna Manley School of the Visual and Performing Arts. And leading the panel discussion today is Mutabaruka. He's a Jamaican dub poet, musician, and activist known for his powerful social and political commentary. His poetry, often delivered over reggae rhythms, tackles issues of oppression, African heritage, and justice. He gained international recognition with works like This Poem and albums such as Check It and The Mystery Unfolds. Beyond his music, he is a radio host and public speaker, using his platform to challenge societal norms and advocate for African consciousness. His impact on Jamaican culture and global spoken word poetry remains profound. And I'm going to turn over to Mutabaruka as he leads the panel through this discussion.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. The topic, bridging the generational gap. I've been pondering on the topic, trying to maneuver myself around it because of it. But a whole heap of these things that we hear about, people want to do this and want to do that. It's not going to work. A whole heap of the maneuvering of what you must say upon radio and what you can't say upon radio. That's not going to stop it from saying. Because we live in an age of science and technology now that advance itself to the point where no matter what you tell a youth, this and tell a youth that, him going to find it, how to get it away. We have to examine the culture of the people then. Because every discipline we learn in a university and thing come from culture. Cultural expression define people. And defining the people don't mean say what them say is static or it don't move because I remember one time I was playing some music and a little youth come to me and ask me if Dennis Brown did gay. I said, why you ask that? He said, well, him hear Dennis Brown sing a tune, acting like a child, so young and gay. I said, no, 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 it's not that him gay. Gay at them time they was happy. Because they have a group named the Gay Lads. And nobody never find it weird or strange. And now we see it come right back round now that in America you can't say gay again. You can't say gay because gay is a derogative term that people use. What we're saying is that even though we have worked hard to get rid of it, it's going to fade out. I won't even think them that is we have kill up yourself and eat up yourself over. It's going to eventually fade out. And the next generation going to come and wonder why we was arguing and talk about these things so and have all these kind of conference and this about something that is going to fade. Yet still we have to protect ourselves now. And I think that is what is happening now. We are trying to protect ourselves from the inevitable. The inevitable is that it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. We can limit it, but given what we have at our fingertips now, the iPhone, iPad, iTunes, and all them things there, it's not going to stop. And given that we have visa now and we can travel all over the place, especially in America, the influence is so weird in America that when we come back here, we forgot to say Jamaica we come from. And we have coconut tree and banana and them something there. So what we really say is that what is the bridging the gap? What we're trying to do when we say bridging the gap. And we want to challenge the panelists them to really explain at their own levels. When we say bridging the gap, what it really means to you. And we want to ask the first panelist, Wei Chin, what it means to you when you hear the thing bridging the gap. Over to you.
The fact is that every new generation resists being a copy of the older generation. What we see in the music, what we see in popular entertainment, popular culture, is a manifestation of that desire. So it's the same discussion that has been happening for millennia. When I was a boy growing up in the 1960s, and perhaps Muta, you're the only man on this here older than me, I can remember the first day I heard a slack singing. Because I had a little friend at Port Antonio Primary, and on the way home, we passed the bar, and there's a jukebox. I never had money to throw in a jukebox, and him throwing a jukebox, and a Prince Buster thing came on. But in those days, you couldn't, the main source of music would have been the two radio stations, and later on, the JBC TV would have where it's at in the evening with the lane wind. But apart from that, it was easy to control musical content. What has changed today is not only the fact that we now have access in our hands through smartphones and so on, content from all over the world. It is the inability now to control the content and the speed at which it comes at us is where we have the real challenge. On the issue of generation to generation, 30 years ago, I sat in a music studio in Kingston and some of the older heads, and I am privileged to have sat at the knees of some of the greats. But I remember Bunny Wailer saying, and he was there with some contemporaries, and he was saying how this new generation, and we're talking 30 years ago, early 90s, late 80s, and they were concerned about the state of Jamaican music. And I remember I think Bunny Wailer said to them, nowadays we say the same thing, but we cover it up, we pretty it up. So we would have said push within a fire, which was a metaphor for something else. But him said, these guys nowadays, and he must talk about Shabba and Ninja and so, them just say what everything we used to kind of keep it hidden. So they were not so much talking about the content, but the loss of subtlety. And as I say, it's a generational revolution. Nowadays, when I listen to contemporary Jamaican music, and I do because I need to learn about what our new generation is saying. There's a lot of terrible things being said. We can't get around it. But it's difficult for my generation to have a discussion around contemporary music without us coming across as the old guys trying to kill out the youth them and their form of expression. But we have music that we ought to be disturbed by because it promotes negative social values, it promotes scamming, it promotes criminality, it promotes misogyny. There's a lot out there. There's positive things out there too, you know. But I want to come back to Clyde's point. The challenge policymakers have, and we as a society have, is to strike a balance between freedom of expression and content that undermines the very foundation of that society that can promote freedom of expression and individual rights. We have to strike that balance. Now, I'm sorry for my friend Cardiel Green, you know, because regulators trying to regulate the internet now is a far more difficult proposition than RJR and JBC and TVJ and even with cable television. It is virtually impossible. So we need to the fallback position has to be the national discussion around values and attitudes. It's something we should not have left. It is something that we will not all agree on what everything is in the details because we all go off in our different directions, depending on country versus city, religion, cult, whatever it is, spiritual belief. But there are core values that define us as a country or ought to define us as a country and nation. We have to also acknowledge that every household is not the same. Every degree of parenting is not the same. So the village is going to have to strengthen up and raise our children. But it starts with a discussion around what are the positives that we can use now in terms of that discussion to strengthen the minds of our people. That no matter what comes at us, we laugh at it, we find a little entertainment with it, as I did listening to that song on the jukebox back 60 years ago. I don't think it has impacted me negatively, hopefully not. But the last point I want to make on this is there is an important 4-part drama that I saw on Netflix this weekend called Adolescence. I don't know how many of you have seen it, but it centers around the consequences of these young people, in this case, a 13-year-old boy, sitting down at home and consuming content on his screen that led him to murder another child. Even with the best of intention, we don't know what our children are doing and we don't know what values are being inculcated into them. So my plan is I called my son and asked him if he had seen it. I have a 15-year-old son. And he said, no. I said, this weekend we're going to sit down and watch that. Because he and his friends, they're sitting at 11 o'clock in the night, they are playing video games and chatting to each other. It made me wake up and say, with all of the best intention, we don't know what is going on in their minds. So we have to keep our children close and we have to not shy away from the discussions we need to have with them because no amount of regulation is going to stop the flood. We have to strengthen our children to brace against it.
Yes, Mr. Chi. I totally agree with no regulation and no amount of regulation going to stop the flow of information. And no matter how it go or how it come, it's going to reach them because tomorrow you look around, they're going to invent another machine. Maybe you don't even have to hold it in your hand. Maybe you just stick a pin in your head and you have the information that flow in there. So, and it have more information than what the human brains can carry. But that saying that we have to do something, that is really the problem we have now, that we have to do something. And we keep doing something and something else come up, but we still have to do the something. Because we really want to feel like we are doing something. You know, we don't really want to feel like we are sitting and not nothing, but we have to do something. So we are going to ask the next panelist, Andrea Chong. Andrea Chong, what is the thing that have to be done that is not done already? That now we should be doing and hope say it keep doing it the right and proper way.
Good morning, Muto. Happy to be here. Good morning, everybody. I'm coming to you live from the Kingston Creative Co-working Space. I'm in our podcast studio where young Jamaican creatives come to create a lot of content. This is where Savannah had broadcasted her MTV Tiny Desk, where YouTuber Dottie Berry comes to film his content. So I'm in a space where I'm around a lot of creatives who are making the content that we're talking about. Also, is there a divide is a question that we need to ask, because in my family, we have 4 generations and the full spectrum of musical taste. I have a 15-year-old who recently went through a K-pop phase, 97-year-old and 102-year-old grandfather. They love classical music, stuff from the 50s. You would imagine that all these 4 generations are worlds apart, but in a weird way, time is moving linearly, right, for us in terms of years, but the musical tastes are not linear. It's on a loop. So there's some really interesting intersections that I'm observing that just don't play out along simplistic age lines. So my 75-year-old father, his ringtone is Clark's by Vibes Cartel. And the only person in the family who has a record player, it's my 15-year-old. And what was her favorite Christmas gift? A Sade album from the 80s. So we have to understand these things are not just so black and white and clear cut. The young people are not just accessing today's music. So it's not young people are listening to today's music. They're also rediscovering the music of yesteryear as if it was new. So nothing aggravates my 15-year-old, like her coming to me saying, "Oh, mommy, listen to this." And I'm like, that's not new. I can hear that track in the background and I play the original song. So, it's a little more complex. And I think 2 weeks ago, we're hosting a Kingston Creative Meetup, and the topic was OGs versus Gen Zs. So we very recently discussed this topic, and we're talking so much about the impact of technology, which impacts how music is consumed, distributed, and discovered. It's no longer something that just plays on the radio and the whole family sits around listening to Casey Kasem's Top 40 and everybody's hearing the same thing. No, young music listeners can discover music from anywhere in the world, and not just geographically, from any time period in history. So access to diverse music has never been as high. In recent years, I've heard music from the indigenous Sami people of Scandinavia, and of course, way more K-pop from Korea than I've ever thought I ever wanted to hear. But that aside, and I wanted to touch on the impact of, just technology, social, because Netflix and TikTok, although they are not music platforms, it's a huge phenomenon. If anyone remembers Kate Bush and her song Running Up That Hill, it was originally released in 85, but, after it was featured on Netflix and Stranger Things, it was, a huge thing. It topped the charts for the first time, right, in the UK. So years after, because of Netflix, Kate Bush became the oldest female artist to top the UK charts. It broke streaming records. So TikTok being viral is a new way for music to be distributed and for artists to bust, right? And you can get a new generation of fans in that way. So when we talk about, is there a generational divide? Like in my circles, young people appear pretty appreciative of older music. There's a lot of old souls in the family and friends group and in the community, the creative community. I find a lot of appreciators of 70s and 80s music. And the older ones also, like I said, like to keep current, about Doechii and Kendrick Lamar and Coffee, Protege, and Chronix, which is our new reggae revival musicians. I find that the divide is maybe not as vast as we may think it is. The challenge is, though, is that it's really difficult to access new music for older folks. My generation and older didn't grow up on Spotify, right? So many of these distribution channels, your Alexa and your YouTube, it's demand driven. It means you have to know what you want to hear in order to hear it. So you might tend to just stay in your bubble. Very difficult to discover that new music. Like I said, nobody's sitting around the radio together as a family hearing the same thing. In those days, access to music was common across the generations. Now you sit in the room and everybody's on their individual devices and they probably have on headphones too. So, you'd have to spend an unhealthy amount of time online in order to really find those gems and those new artists. But yes, I think in terms of regulation of it, and I don't want to skip too far ahead, but in terms of regulating it, I really believe in freedom of expression. I think these boundaries have always been pushed by every generation of artists, and I do believe that artistic freedom of expression is something that we need to hold sacred.
I give thanks. We want to support the idea of once there was a time when everybody was sitting around a radio and listening. Now everybody have their own radio and their own ears and listen to anything what they want to listen to. It create the complication for man like Cardell to go really investigate. Sometimes I don't even know them do it. How them know some music play a tune where a bad word come out tonight. And at 2 o'clock a morning I play it. Them have somebody who sit down there just watch me. I check it. I don't know. But that guy have to go fade out because right now you don't have to wait 2 o'clock a morning to somebody play something where now but so. You know, Friday, 12 o'clock in the day, your man was bust a tune, I hear this big thing come out of it, I say, wow, I wonder if God help them hear that. And they realize, say, boy, them hear it, you know, they hear a fright. The real script have scramble to apologize, even though God will not hear it. So we in a problem now because if we are going to wait upon a regulator to regulate where you are player, we in a big problem. We should have know that. And I talk about now the people that move on the real life themselves. We should have know say why that supposed to listen to before you play it and then put it on. But apparently some people think say call them have 10 man around the corner they are listen and just call them and say guess what? Must have just play a tune about the night, you know. And right now the radio station get frantic, says what happened. We need some inward thing I go on with yourself. We need something where that's why we talk about building the bridge. The bridge have to be something that lead to your person rather than somebody that try instill that person in a you. And it's easy to do. It's easy to do, you know. We have to start, with a cliche, start from the home. The problem with the home is that the mother go and dance with the young girl to borrow all her clothes to go and dance. You know, the mother listen to the same tune where the daughter listen to it. His uncle granny now listen to it. And sometimes granny want to go like say she young and she get involved in it and all know the lyrics so we are surprised to know much because say, hey, all my wife know every tune. Some tune where she love cartoon more than Jesus love little children. You know see it. And they wonder how she loved how she but she say him have a way that was different. Cause she don't know the music them. She don't know the music them, but you listen. But I don't see that influence her nowhere from certain way. So if her mind done set this already. Cause she gone past the age. But the youth them mind not done set already. You can't grab them right now, but it's how you gonna grab them. How you gonna grab them. If you keep beating them, them are gonna resort to arrogance and ignorance and just say, go all your old people, you don't know what is what. And just continue to do what they do. So we need to have that bridge what we are talking about right that's all. We have to find the bridge and fill up the gaps with the bridge. The bridge have to lead somewhere. And we don't know if the next panelist them can give you a little insight and when them say bridge, where the bridge going? What is the gap that is there that need to be examined so as to make the broadcasting commission and all them people there feel like they must do something good. Because I don't care what you do, as I say, you can't stop it. You can't stop it, but you can regulate it to the point where it don't become as boisterous. Because I don't care what a man want to tell me. The tune them have old wasn't like what we are here now. I don't care what a man want to say. When you see hear some thing, I know me I realize what the people them say. Even when you mention about pushing in the fire jacket. I mean I say wait. I know me realize what I say. Me never know what I say when me never listen to it all the while. It's like a woman that say she listen to murder she wrote and she never knows how bad she talk about. And she listen to it and she know all the lyrics and every word. And she hear God say murder she wrote and she start to realize some rotted. How bad she the man talk about. So We need the bridge. We need the bridge. The bridge have to connect one side to the other side. And we have to know where the other side are come from and where the other side are go. So we want to call upon the next panelist, Courtney. Courtney, what you do?
Hi, good morning.
Oh, I think you're going up at university.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on this platform. This is something that I'm actually pretty passionate about as an artist myself that makes clean music. Um, but I feel like I just want to go back to what Mr. Chen was saying earlier, where he was talking about doing more positive things to help build the bridge, you know. And I guess I'll just talk about my childhood. My mother never gonna no dance with me or anything like that. But my mother loved music. You know, she herself was a musician as well. And she loved music, and she would just randomly just call me to the dining table and sit me down beside her and just play something for me. She would just go on YouTube, play a video for me, play a song for me. She would always be playing music for me, and it was always music that she, you know, used to listen to in her younger years, and music that she still enjoys listening to. And I feel like that is important. But in terms of the community part of it, and in terms of the village, you know, growing the children part of it, I feel like there should be more initiatives. In my opinion, there should be more initiatives put in place where, you know, the general public is exposed to artists that make clean music, because I know that it is an issue now and it's rampant where there are artists that are making music that's not so clean, and that the older generation, they don't appreciate the content of the music and that sort of thing. But I can name off the top of my head, I would run out of fingers and toes as to how many artists there are right here in our country, in Jamaica, that are making clean music and should be given a spotlight. You know, and I find that even though the children are gravitating towards the music that, you know, it's more of a negative content, I believe that if there were more initiatives put in place by the powers that be, that, you know, the media would listen to them, and like the bigger platforms would listen to them. I feel like if they put these initiatives in place to expose the cleaner artists, then, you know what I mean? I feel like we would start to make some headway. So that's something that I'm very, very passionate about, because I love when it's reggae month in Jamaica. I love when it's February, and I love when it's reggae month because we get all these free shows, and we get panel discussions and forums where reggae music is discussed, and all areas of reggae music, sound system culture, and, you know, we talk about the artists who started reggae or started rocksteady or started ska and that sort of thing. But then after February, we don't have it anymore. And I'm just like, our culture is so rich. Our music is, you know, in my opinion, the richest music in the world. You know, our music is, I believe our music has had the biggest impact on the world. You know, nobody can tell me different. And so I feel like, you know, us as a country, we should be doing more in terms of having sort of more of a control over, you know, the music in our country and how it is promoted, and, you know, that sort of thing. I just believe that, you know, there have been measures put in place to sort of censor the music that is played on the radio and, you know, in those sort of spaces. But I believe that, you know, there should be more positive initiatives where there should be more concerts. I feel like we need to have a bigger concert culture, because if it's one thing Jamaican people love, do they love go a little concert? I've performed at quite a few concerts where people don't know me, but they are standing up and they are listening to me and they appreciate, what is coming out of my mouth. And they don't know me, but they're enjoying the music same way. And so I feel like if we were to have more concert spaces, more entertainment spaces, I believe that is the first step in sort of pushing out more positive music and having a more positive impact on our music and our culture. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, give thanks, sister. You know, in my experience on the radio over the years,
Mm-hmm.
I started on a station where say them name reggae radio station. That means how them a format it is that them go play is reggae. They must say about a Jamaican music, because I know every artist in a Jamaica do reggae still. And what happened is that it go on and go on till I come with a program where I was supposed to go play reggae from all over the place. I think Mackenzie is the one where they suggest say, well, most of the years you have the music them, We play reggae music from all over the world. So I say, okay. So I'm not when we join the station, I start to play. I start to talk. And it eventually take over the music itself, and the talking start to become more important than the music. And the man who owned the station never did mind it, because it wasn't supposed to be a talk radio. It's supposed to be a music radio. So we go on there after 30 odd years and we still a talk. And the influence we gather, I have to say is one of well, I don't have to say it, but it's a program with garner interest from all over the world till they make all book out of it now. Now the point for me I make is that talking is not just talking. Because people are saying, what you do? We say, what me I do? Me I talk. It's what me I do. What is doing with the talking thing? So we use what we have and the knowledge what we have to bring out certain information on the radio. And in that, it become one of the most popular program ever. And really and truly now, we still have play the music, But the music is not the thing. And anytime we play music, it will lead to where we are saying. We don't just take up tune and play tune. It's a theme. We have a theme with the tune. If you are talking about, family, we play some family tune. If you are talking about gun lyrics, we play gun lyrics where I talk about put on the gun and them something there. Then I didn't spend 1 hour pure gun music. And all the tune them I mention gun. But it's not gun for kill people, it's gun for put on. Now, the reality of it is that I personally, in my experience, feel say there should be more communication with the radio, disc jock, and the people, other than just I say, we want to big up Johnny in a town, and big up Mary in a St. James, and big up this, and people spend 4 hours, and big up people, big up the Iceman, big up the Chuckman and all that. And you can talk to the people there. So I personally think say one of the things them that can be done by the radio and the MC who have 4 hours by the radio, maybe every day, is to talk to the people. Talk to the people, give them something of value and sensible, something to listen to. And you play the music. And if you was to talk to the people them, you'd find say you're not going to play a music outside of where you talk about. Because it's what you talk about going to guide you what to play. And that I find it with myself that when I talk something, I want to find a tune that match what me I say. And you don't go outline. So I feel say that formula to me it work. I don't know if it can work with another DJ. I know Cardell used to do it because I know Cardell used to do it on radio. And him talk and play music. And I remember a brethren were dead long time. Him dead. Dixon, Jeff Dixon. Him was early day like me. And him used to talk. Him talk about energy and this and this and that. And him play the music to fit to him and say, and it was one of the populist program. So I think it's very important right now, since we find ourselves at this dilemma, to talk to the people them, other than just send greetings over there so and greetings over there so, and I talk about who what do this in America and PDD and Beyonce and all these things. Not that you can't talk about it because you must have a place for it, but you can't spend 4 hours on the radio not saying nothing to the people them more than big up this and big up that. Because the music there. Reggae music have something to do with every topic, bad or good. And we must can find something. To my level, that is the bridge. The bridge between the young and the old is the young and the old who dep on the radio must talk. And as I say, only the dumb envy the talkative. Because talking is not just a blah 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 blah. That is when you know say you blah 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 blah. It's when every day you get up and I say, big up the Iceman named Tony. Big up the girl with the dance that night. This and this and that. That is where you read it. So we want to call the next panelist here. Perry Cummins Jr. Perry Cummins Jr. How you do?
Blessings, Muta. I'm well.
Yes.
And I must say to Broadcasting Commission, thank you for having me. Just following suit regarding the whole idea of what the bridge is. For me, I believe there is a need to bridge the gap between persons in our formative years when it comes to music and, of course, the newer school, as they often put it. I am a young man, probably one of the younger persons here, but I appreciate older music. I appreciate, some of the songs I hear, even outside of the gospel genre. I'm a gospel recording artist, but I appreciate some of the Bob Marley songs. I appreciate some of the older music that communicates positivity. So for me, Muta, and for the panelists, it is more of the messaging for me more than the genre itself. That's probably something we can look into more, because what I find is that oftentimes when it comes to music specifically, we tend to segregate and form perspectives and perceptions based on the genre. So once we hear reggae, we think a particular way. Once we hear gospel, we think a particular way. Once we hear dancehall. But I've heard positive music coming from the dancehall community. So for me, it's messaging, Muta. For me, it's what we say, not necessarily how it's communicated, because patois has its place. I hear persons oftentimes saying that patois does not have a place in music, and the way in which it is, language is very important, and patois is relatable, and we are Jamaican people. So we must appreciate the Creole. We must appreciate that form of expression. I have used patois in my own gospel music. A lot of persons saying, "What, gospel? How you use patois in that?" But it has its place. It allows me to be relatable to young people. So I think that is very important. However, I do see though where the gap that exists is for a number of reasons. One, as mentioned earlier by one of the panelists, is that the music isn't as accessible by the older community. They may not know how to access that type of music, so there's not that great level of appreciation from the old school for the new school. Probably if we could probably make the music of our days today more accessible, then they could probably have a different perspective. Because of the technology, young people now, they can YouTube this, they can TikTok that, and they can now know songs by Vibes Cartel, by Michael Jackson, that they didn't know of before. and they now can appreciate the craft. So I think bridging the gap has a lot to do with technology. I believe if we can utilize technology in an appropriate way, right? We touched on AI earlier. If we can find a way to responsibly use technology, then we could be well on our way of bridging the gaps that do exist. I won't be long. I'll also touch on the issue of social responsibility. And I'm looking in the chat and I'm seeing some persons touching on the word socialization. I don't believe that we should forever censor people from freely expressing themselves. I am a gospel artist that speaks profoundly and unapologetically about my faith in God. And I wouldn't want somebody to say, well, Perry, you shouldn't express your faith. So I want persons to have the opportunity to express themselves freely. However, we must drive home the point of social responsibility. Yes, there is freedom of speech, but what you say, can it affect positively or negatively the impressionable minds of our youth? What you say of power, Muta, you mentioned the power of words. Words can change a man's life, can change a woman's life in an instant. One word of positivity can prevent someone from committing suicide. So we must drive home, and I hope as we advance in the conversation, we can touch on social responsibility. What is my role in ensuring that I positively impact this generation and even others through music, through what I communicate? But I will digress for now.
Give thanks. Okay, so we want to ask the big man a question here. Cardi the big man, Cardi will attack. You are going to keep running outside. We attack. All right. Misinformation on the media, is a big thing. People are using AI. People are using people's voice to do all sort of madness and defame people. Even myself was victim of that the other day. Definition of character. All right. The question is, you think it's necessary to take legal action against these things when you see some come out defaming your character? You think it's going to reach anyway?
Yeah, yes. And you've raised an important point, Mota, that in talking about this generational gap, we have to talk as well about artificial intelligence, in particular generative artificial intelligence, and something you mentioned at the very beginning, although you didn't put it that way, neurotechnology, where you're talking about implants and so on. Now you have technology capable of reading the brainwaves, right? And there is no legal protection actually from having your brain not being read. So when you say it's complex, it is. We have to be talking about a new jurisprudence of the mind, protecting the mind as a separate computing system that should be inviolate to intrusion. So that's the complication, and the challenge we're having now with deep fakes is like the tip of the iceberg. You're asking about suits. Yes, people need to understand that the digital world doesn't mean we abandon laws in the physical world. Vincent in the chat is talking about the need for literacy, digital media and information literacy. That's key before we get to the law, before we get to suits. Because you have some people who are deliberately, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing and they're being deliberate. Mota, whole heap of people are not setting out to harm nobody. They have no clue the harm they are causing. When, before you even talk about deepfakes, when you just take up your phone now, for example, and you see somebody in distress, like a serious accident with carnage, right? And Archibald, when he goes on the scene, knows as a broadcaster the harm that can be done to the family and to other people if he just simply records that carnage, come on the 7 o'clock news and say, there's been a serious accident. Look here now, how the manhunt chop off. But the average citizen who is caught up in a loop in a world where virality matters and likes matters and goes on the scene and take the photo, the video and uploads it. Look what going down a sentence. He really doesn't mean to harm anybody. But who prepared our citizens for this world that we're in now? Right? Everybody is a celebrity. Everybody have people following them. One time is only celebrity, quote unquote celebrity, were in that position. And they have people who they hire. They have PR experts who explain to them how they should communicate and what they should do and what they shouldn't say and the implications if you say certain things. The average citizen doesn't have that preparation. So people have put them baby on the internet, not thinking about pedophilia and the consequences of when that child grew. Look, right now, my daughter, who is a grown woman, she's embarrassed at some of her baby pictures. You know, very embarrassed. Even now as an adult, I will have a photo of my daughter, and this is wonderful. And no, daddy, do not share that. Don't share these things. I have to go through all my photographs before. Very sensitive, grown person. What about when the child has no decision in that process and people are filming them, taking photographs, putting them online and so on? So you're right about the question of law, and we should make it abundantly clear in this bridging the gap, in helping not just the younger generation, but all generations who are in the digital space to understand that it is true that the operating systems of the society seem to be changing, and very, very quickly, and we are being made very powerful with these devices. And by the way, that's a fiction. That is a fiction. We're actually getting weaker by these devices, not more powerful. People are becoming less informed because there's a whole heap of information overload, and incidentally sharing everything about them, all their data. So right now you have major companies that know more about you, that can predict your behavior, and more importantly, influence you without your even knowing it. So digital media and information literacy, as I said to Vincent in the chat, I think that is a key regulatory tool. So when you were talking about them something can't work again, and so you're right about that. It doesn't mean regulation is ineffective. It's a different intelligence that is required. Yeah. So that's why the Broadcasting Commission is so focused on digital media and information literacy, because we know you need the citizen, the best informed, the more digitally literate citizen you have. That's your first line of defense, even if they're exposed to harmful content. So it's really a partnership and a collaboration that's required. And that's why this discussion between the generations is an important discussion because the older generation are as vulnerable as the younger generation in this new dispensation. The two generations will have to talk about the society we are crafting or which is being crafted for us. That's more appropriate.
Okay. All right.
So may I answer you, sir?
Yeah, man. Yeah,
All right.
answer it, man. Give me more than an answer to. All right. We want to ask about the media. If the media is a reflection of the society, we want to ask one of the panelists, them, Andrea, she name out there. If the media is a reflection of the society, because people say that rather than people are influencing the media.
Yeah, I do think that artists reflect both what's happening in society and what's happening personally within them. So, what we get in music and media is reflective of people's lived experience. And as I mentioned before, I really believe in artistic freedom. I think the market will decide what is popular, what is liked, people will gravitate towards things. And similarly, in terms of regulation, I think that we have to have a balance between the media education as well as user driven regulation. The scale that these billions of posts are made every single day is no longer you're regulating a radio station. You are regulating every single channel that media can come to you on. And it's billions and billions of posts. It's just not scalable to say that you're going to have a centralized regulation of all of this media that's coming at you. So, it's just not practical. So that community-driven moderation is going to be very important. The centralized regulation, I also have a healthy distrust of it. There was always an agenda, as Cordell mentioned, right? Cambridge Analytica, etc. They were always selling your product, shaping a narrative or a worldview, right? So the centralized, I don't believe it's scalable, and I don't believe that its intent was pure, So I do think that we have to have that decentralized responsibility along with the education so that users and communities can really develop their own moderation norms. And when these guardrails come off, because we're seeing what happens where, they're saying you can't ban this and you can't ban that, the trends happening in the US now. What is happening is that water will find its own level. Blue Sky has a very different feel from a Twitter. Twitter has a very different feel from a Threads. And hopefully, what I hope is that it will become self-regulating in that people will have to just have more personal responsibility for what is true, what is fake, discernment. It will require education, but I think that's where we're going to end up at.
Okay.
Because I think it's a losing battle if we're trying to fight AI, if we're trying to fight the internet, if we're trying to fight social media. That is a losing battle. That horse has already gone through the gate. So now it's about how do we talk to our children? How do we establish critical thinking in not only our children, but in the wider society so that we can discern with the volume of media that's coming towards us.
Okay. So a 16-year-old asking Wayne if or we're going to join the music like Gen Z and the Gen X.
Are we going to, sorry?
Join them, the Gen Z and the Gen X, the music.
We have to have that family conversation. And when I say family, I mean the Jamaican family. I said earlier that even though we are a diverse community, a diverse nation, there's strength in the diversity if we can come together around some common values, some common core values. We are a society that loves our freedom, and I would not sacrifice our freedom. But freedom cannot be licensed. We are a society that loves our individual rights, but individual rights cannot take precedence over family and community and national obligations. So we have to find that balance, and it comes from a conversation. We have to have a national conversation. As I said, we have to strengthen ourselves against the flood. The flood is there. The issue is that once upon a time, you would have regulators who could regulate the JBC and the RJR and the JBC TV and so on. And societies are not without precedent. It's interesting to note that the most prestigious prize in journalism in the United States is named the Pulitzer Prize. Joseph Pulitzer made his fortune in yellow journalism. He and William Randolph Hearst at the end of the 19th century had a battle, the two big New York newspapers of the time, to see who could be the most salacious, the most scandalous, the most inflammatory. And historians will tell you it precipitated America's intervention in the Spanish-American War. It was the spreading of disinformation and riling up the public that led America to one war. And we see it playing out again before us. The challenge we have now is that it plays out much more quickly and it's harder to regulate. It's not just about salacious lyrics or lyrics that incite the violence. It's misinformation, fake information. And what we're seeing now, is that truth is being overwhelmed. The sheer volume of things that has come at us. We don't know what is true anymore. It's difficult to discern. And the only refuge we have is let us huddle and come up and talk about common values. What does it mean to be a Jamaican? What does it mean to live on a fragile, developing country, 60-odd years old? We need to have that conversation. We can't get away from it. It will have critical thinking, but the most important thing is shared values. What are our shared values? What is it that join us together? Whether we're a gospel artist, whether we're a Christian, whether we're a Rastafari, whether we're Adventist, whatever. Whether we love Sade, whether we love Kate Bush, whether we love Valiant, Skeng, Skillibeng, Bob Marley, Protege, there are common things that we can say we enjoy together because we are Jamaican. And we need to have that.
You talk about. Yeah, that's something I can do.
Yeah.
1 minute.
There are two important points because we have a digital problem, but the solution is going to be analog. In other words, self-regulation is paramount. How we deal with this technology and how we prepare ourselves to deal with this technology is the ultimate way that we're going to challenge it. The other thing we talk about, for me, is what I call reciprocal mentoring. In other words, mentoring cross-generational. So I believe that my son mentors me, and I mentor my son. And the two of us, I think, our knowledge of music and culture is what it is because of that cross-generational talk. And that is critical to everything that we discuss here. We can talk about all the regulations, and it's important that we have education fora like these that we're having here. That's going to be very important. But also critical is how we take responsibility as parents to speak with our children, to let them understand what we are doing and to know what they are doing.
Okay. Okay, so we kind of reach a level now where we just want the panelists them get closing remarks, short, 1 minute again, closing remarks. So we start again from the top. And we go to Wayne. Closing remarks.
I made a quick scan of how other policymakers in other countries, advanced and developing, deal with it. And I like the idea that the Canadian regulators do, where their commission has a long list of parenting tips and huge public education drives to really, as I say, strengthen our people. The flood is there. We can't control access anymore. It's gone beyond us. So what we have control over is our mindsets, our attitudes.
Okay. Andrea?
Thanks, Nita. I'm here.
I agree with what you said, Wayne. I did say that at the beginning. Yes, Andrea.
So just in closing, I've seen a number of shifts in my time, from the record players to the Walkmans to the CD to having a Blockbuster video store to Spotify and Netflix. And that shift to digital, I think, is the most critical thing that's really influenced how we consume and how we produce music and media. I just want to go on the production side for all the creatives that Kingston Creative represents, and up-and-coming Jamaican artists. We didn't touch on how it's influenced what we produce, right? But they may be more influenced to produce trap reggae because of what they are hearing. They're part of the global circle. So no longer can we just, make something that is regulate Jamaica. It's a global space that we're in once we're talking digital.
Yeah.
And the desire to make money, to cross over and to be heard might be changing the unique sound of what is Jamaican and the unique values of what is Jamaican. And just lastly, I truly believe that parents are the strongest influence on the child, not the outside world, not their friends. I think it's really the home environment. What they see you do, what they hear you say, that has the biggest impact. And totally agree with Clyde. You have to make time. Once you can teach them how to rationalize what's coming at them, and if we can put in that time, I think that we, the family structure, not just necessarily the nuclear family, but extended too, we, the community, can be the strongest influence in their lives.
Okay, okay. Courtney? Courtney,
Yeah. In
Courtney,
my opinion, for the closing remarks, I feel like I'm just going to be a broken record and reiterate what I said earlier. The parents, I agree with Miss Andrea that the parents do, come first in terms of the influence of children. But in the unfortunate event that that influence is not there, I believe that the greatest responsibility is on the powers that be, whether it be the government or, you know what I mean, to influence the children and steer them into the right direction. So I think more concerts, more school tours, more advertisements during the news. I see that the Broadcasting Commission has an advertisement going on right now teaching people about AI and deep fakes, and I love that advertisement because it is very informative. So I think, more initiatives, more positive initiatives, and more impact on the music and the culture, and more steering it into a positive direction.
good job. Perry?
Thank you. For my closing remarks, I'll just emphasize what I've shared earlier. We have a social responsibility to our children, the future of our country. We must ensure that we communicate what is profitable to positively impact the future of this nation. I must also acknowledge again the gap that really and truly exists and the possibilities of using technology responsibly to ensure that that gap is bridged. And of course, we must clearly define the standard. What is the standard when it comes to creativity? What is the standard when it comes to our music? What are we guided by when we produce what we produce? Thank you.
Give thanks. We'll turn it over to Archibald.
Thanks, Muta. And I thank Muta as well as the panelists there in that discussion. We heard from Clyde McKenzie. Well, as he ended up in the discussion as well. There was so much to chew on that he wanted to comment. But apart from Clyde, we were really hearing from Andrea Chung, Wayne Chen, Perry Cumming Jr., and Courtney as well. And I think it's very interesting how no matter how much we discuss these issues, we wind up talking about the fact that at the end of the day, it takes a village. You need a regulator, but you also need people in all sorts of different sectors to work together to get this done. But as we'll be speaking about the role of the regulator. The Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica plays a key role in promoting responsible content, supporting media literacy, and ensuring that content remains within appropriate guidelines. So to hear a little bit about how it's navigating these challenges, I'm inviting now and introducing Sasha Harrison, who will walk us through their initiatives. Sasha, over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to share more about the resources that are made available by the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica for the safe and healthy consumption of content. For the past 8 years, the Commission's mission has been to ensure a successful national transition to a digital economy while protecting the people of Jamaica from potential abuses of communication and influence. This mission, of course, informs our strategic objective to be a responsive, evidence-based, and innovative regulator, and it informs our commitment to future-proofing our approach to regulation. The BCJ sees digital media and information literacy, in particular the ability to self-regulate, as an important pillar of our approach to protecting the most vulnerable from harm. This timeline highlights some of the key initiatives conducted by the BCJ over the last 5 years to support safe and healthy consumption of content. It is by no means exhaustive, as the BCJ is constantly engaged locally and around the world in activities such as our global annual Artificial Intelligence for Information Accessibility Conference, and conducting studies such as our recently concluded study on trends in media consumption and attitudes towards the regulation of traditional and new media, the results of which we hope to share at another future engagement. We will speak more about some of the initiatives highlighted on this timeline, but for a more comprehensive list of speeches, presentations, and other publications from the Broadcasting Commission on related issues, please visit our website at broadcastingcommission.org. One of our dedicated and one of the most accessible resources we have for improving digital media and information literacy is the Get Safe Online Jamaica website, which the BCJ supports. It is a leading resource for unbiased, factual, and easy to understand information on online safety. This website is a unique resource as it provides practical advice on how to protect yourself, your family, your finances, devices, and your workplace against many problems encountered online. The BCJ was a major force behind this launch in the Caribbean in 2019, and we continue to champion this initiative. So for more information and to keep yourself safe online, please visit getsafeonline.org.jm. The BCJ also engages a wide cross-section of stakeholders in a variety of ways in an effort to improve the digital literacy of Jamaicans. As was referenced in the conversation earlier, that is being practiced in other jurisdictions, we have a number of public education initiatives. Our national media campaigns address important issues during primetime media and across the most popular social media channels, with the intention to reach a wide cross-section of Jamaicans. You may have noticed recently a new campaign educating Jamaicans about generative AI, specifically deepfakes. So you can expect more of these types of campaigns on the challenges confronting society from the Commission. These campaigns, of course, are bolstered by extensive in-person engagements with the possibility of impacting upwards of 5,000 youths and adults across the island in any given year. The campaigns are also supported by stakeholder consultations around important policy, regulation, and research, some of which we will share briefly in the next few slides. In 2023, after extensive consultation and national survey and a final validation exercise, the Broadcasting Commission presented a digital media and information literacy policy framework for Jamaica to the Office of the Prime Minister. We will share findings from our national survey, which was conducted in early 2021, which featured a nationally representative sample of 1,004 Jamaicans between the ages of 18 and 89 years old. So on this slide, we have the median Jamaican competency profile. We can interpret this as the average Jamaican is a young adult female, high school graduate who owns and uses a smartphone primarily for the purposes of socialization and entertainment. She works full-time and she earns a salary of less than $100,000 per month, providing her access to a lower middle-income lifestyle. This survey provided a number of insights, and it taught us that first, digital services, education, engagement, published experiences must be designed to be consumed from a mobile phone as a priority. That is, successful interventions must be mobile first. The D-mail competencies prevalent among Jamaica's adult population are driven by lifestyle and culture, not by the formal economy. And finally, despite most Jamaicans scoring very highly in the competence areas of communication and collaboration, as well as media, information, and data literacy, Jamaicans still rate themselves as low, as having low skills as it pertains to engaging in digital citizenship via digital technologies. This framework, as mentioned, is a national framework. But this year, the Commission proposes to create a demonstration case for the proposed policy for use by other industries with the application of this national framework within the media and communication sector. We encourage you to look out for more on that initiative. We now shift our focus to the content code. In 2022, our consultant concluded a revision of the Children's Code for Programming. That revision began in 2020, and we now have a comprehensive report and our new regulatory tool, the Content Code. The revised code aims to address the unique needs of children creatively and widens the remit of duty of care to include everyone here today: parents, caregivers, educators, religious leaders, and public health providers as well. This table highlights for us the major differences between the two codes. The original code was designed for our licensees, and as mentioned, the remit is now widened. It's not just for licensed content providers, but providers of content and content services wherever you consume content. That is traditional and new media. The target platforms for this code have been expanded because, again, it is wherever you consume content. Our traditional tools were ratings, scheduling, and advisories. Now we have extended the tools to include guiding principles in line with the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child. Those are protection, provision, and importantly, participation. It addresses a wide range of issues, including accuracy and new issues such as immersion and persuasive tech. Over the course of the last year, the Commission has hosted a series of live virtual consultations with stakeholders under the major groupings of traditional and new media, family and community, the public sector, and the private sector. We concluded those consultations with validation of the code in November. These activities, these extensive consultations that informed the content code, highlighted the need to design two distinct versions of the code, one for licensees and another for citizens. Both versions of the code serve as tools to ensure responsible content creation and consumption. However, the licensee version covers the professional obligations of licensed media to operate in the public interest. The citizen version seeks to do a lot of what we have discussed today. It seeks to empower individuals and families with the knowledge to protect themselves and their children in a digital-first world. Both will work together to build a responsible, inclusive, and innovative media ecosystem in Jamaica. I'll now show you a brief video on the content code, and I ask you to think about it deeply and let us know what you think. Thank you.
In today's fast-paced digital world, staying informed and connected is more important than ever. Within this rapidly evolving digital landscape, we must ensure that Jamaican citizens are positioned to take advantage of the technology and equipped with the safeguards to protect against the dangers, especially for our children and those most vulnerable. Introducing the Content Code, an internationally benchmarked tool that will replace the current Children's Code for Programming. By following its guidelines, consumers and content providers can participate in protecting children from the negative impact of media violence, sexual content, and adult language across all platforms and media. Developed by the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica in line with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, the code addresses three main priorities for children: protection, provision, and participation. Imagine a scenario where you stumble upon inappropriate content without any warning or advisories. The risks are real. Violence, adult language, sexual content, exploitation, and discrimination are just a few examples of the dangers lurking behind your screens. This becomes more likely for all of us without the guidance and framework of a content code. It is essential for all Jamaicans, from young people to guardians and the elderly, to understand the code, as it helps to ensure a safer media experience for everyone, whether they're watching TV, listening to the radio, or consuming content online. The new code extends the traditional rating guide and emphasizes emerging safety issues of privacy, inclusion, immersion and persuasive technology, child sexual exploitation and abuse content, advertising to children, and more. The new component for inclusion emphasizes the role that everyone has to play in keeping Jamaica's children safe. The components of the content code are as follows. Accuracy must be maintained in provided content and free of intent to harm. Ads should be appropriate for the consumer's age, factual, and reasonable. Notice should be given prior to sharing content with problematic sounds or images. Age-appropriate ratings should be applied when delivering content to children. Child sexual exploitation and abuse material must not be shared. Evidence should be reported when found from an identifiable source. Decency assessments should include violence, language, and sex ratings using the rating guide. Discriminating content that promotes hate or incites violence should be avoided or rated adult/not for transmission, depending on format. All users should have access, receive information, and share it within the bounds of the law. Platforms/devices should make it easy for users to take breaks and know when persuasive design is embedded in tech. Language used in content sharing should be understandable and accurate. Parents and guardians should ensure their child's media use is healthy. Seek professional help if a media problem exists. Sensitivity must be taken regarding victims of crime/trauma in depictions. They must have input over how their images are used. Parents, guardians, and the general public should take into account the content code when considering how best to protect the most vulnerable persons under our care from harmful or inappropriate content. It is a practical guide in 1. Determining what is suitable for children. 2. Understanding the importance of parental guidance, and 3. Flagging and reporting inappropriate content. Media practitioners may use the content code in 1. Evaluating children's needs to produce content that is age appropriate. 2. Creating effective programming schedule to ensure that specific programs are transmitted to suitable audiences. 3. Assessing, rating, and measuring programs with problematic material to efficiently issue advisories before transmission. The content code will be key to a successful national transition to a digital economy. It encourages the smart use of technology, responsible consumption of content, and above all, protects us, our rights, and our future generations. We want to hear from you as we finalize the content code. Join with us as we move towards creating a safer, more inclusive digital landscape in Jamaica for everyone.
What the Broadcasting Commission has been doing overall to deal with this matter of responsible content. As we close, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the contributions of everyone who made today's discussion possible. We had quite an enriching discussion. I want to thank our panelists for sharing their knowledge as well as their perspectives. I want to thank Mutabaruka for expertly moderating our discussion, the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica for their ongoing work in media literacy and content regulation, our audience from all across the world for engaging in this critical conversation and sharing your thoughts as well. And before you leave, we're kindly asking that you complete the session evaluation. Your feedback is really, really, really important. And very often people, come to these sessions and they run off. Without completing the session evaluation, there's a link in your chat. We're asking that you spend a little bit more time with us, not very long, perhaps a minute at most, just to complete the session evaluation. Your feedback is critical to ensuring that we are discussing the different kinds of things that you want to talk about and also getting a sense of how we can do it even better.
Shaheem just put it in the chat.
Yes, it's in the chat. That's a Google Docs that was put in the chat by Shaheem. Oh yes, and I want to thank Clyde as well. Completely forgot to thank Clyde.
But I thought I was on fire.
Cordell.
Okay.
As well as Cordell.
Thank you, Muta.
Yeah, man. Can't let you, man.
So again, on behalf of the entire team, and Antoinette as well, on behalf of the entire team, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to continuing the conversation. I'm Archibald Gordon. See you next time.
Yes.
Fantastic.